Madam Eva, a biology teacher from Educare Tanzania, and I'm here again, my dear student, to take you through a series of sessions involving the solving of revision questions. And now I would like to invite you in another topic of evolution form 4. The revision question here are found in the book of Tanzania Institute of Education. We can abbreviate it as TAI. And you can see here, we will look on the exercise number 4.2. Starting with question number 1, we can see, what do you understand by the following concepts explained by Darwin? A is survival for the fittest and B is natural selection. Tunahitajika kutoa the meaning of this terms, the survival for the fittest as well as the natural selection as explained by Darwin. My dear students, before I proceed, I would like to encourage you to go to our media to study on the topic of evolution well. Then you will be back to the revision questions and will be capable of answering any question concerning evolution you will meet. And now you can see those topics, those sessions of these topics at our media, Educare Media Tanzania. You'll get the access of it either in our websites or in the YouTube channel. And now you can see we are going directly to answer the question by starting with survival for the fittest here. Before, I would like to give you a short explanation. When we talk about survival of the fittest, we mean that in the environment, there are lots of changes, there are lots of circumstances in which most of them might be harsh to the living creatures, and those living creatures possess some traits from which some of traits will enable these creatures to survive, others will fail them to survive. And for both organisms which will survive, they will say that they have been surviving for the problems associated with the environment, and that is Darwin referred it as survival for the fittest. Again, there is natural selection, that is the same applies. Tukizungumzia natural selection, we say that the nature is our environment, and nature always has the characteristics of selecting the fit one. That is natural selection. Tunapozungumzia natural selection, we mean that kwenye mazingira kuna some factors ambazo zinasababisha other organisms washindwe kusurvive but others waweze kusurvive, and ambao watashindwa kusurvive zile changes kwenye mazingira, it means that nature itawaselect against, but ambao wataweza kusurvive nature itawaselect for. Kwa hiyo watakaokuwa selected for watasurvive, but watakaokuwa selected against wataperish out. And then we can see here on the survival of the fittest, you can see the definition. This phrase often associated with Darwin, but actually coined by philosopher Herbert Spencer, and it refers to the idea that individuals best adapted to their environment are more likely to survive and reproduce. That is all about the meaning of the survival of the fittest, kwamba individuals ambao watakuwa capable of surviving harsh conditions, tunasema kwamba wanaweza kusurvive na kureproduce. Ambao watakuwa ni best adapted to the changes in the environment, they are likely to survive and reproduce and making their generation to proceed. And then on interpretation, we can see fittest does not necessarily mean the strongest or fastest. Rather, it refers to those individuals whose traits making them better suited to their specific environment. Hatumaanishi strongest. Tunapozungumzia fittest hatumaanishi strongest au fastest. Tunachomaanisha kwamba ni those individuals ambao wanakuwa capable of adapting changes in their environment. That is what we refer as fittest. And then you can say this can include various factors such as camouflage, resistance to disease, and the ability to find food. Factors kama camouflage, when we talk about camouflage, this adaptation will enable the organism to survive predators, to survive the danger conditions. For instance, we can take an example, those mouses during the Industrial Revolution. Kulikuwa kuna moshi sana katika mazingira, and there was two kinds of moths. Walikuwepo moths weupe na moths weusi, but due to the changing in environmental condition, black moths were capable of surviving, and their survival ilikuwa haimaanishi kwamba they were very strong au they were very fastest. No, it's just because tunaangalia ule uwezo wa kuweza kusurvive katika mabadiliko fulani ya mazingira. Why hapa tunazungumzia mfano wa moths? Kwa sababu after industrial evolution, ina maana kwamba moshi ulikuwa mwingi kwenye mazingira na most of the environment parts zikabadilika rangi zikawa black, so that black color ikawa ni camouflage to black moths. So predator walikula sana moths ambao ni weupe kwa sababu mazingira yaliwaselect out. Kwa hiyo walikuwa wanaweza kuliwa kwa urahisi, lakini wale black moths walikuwa hawawezi kuliwa, and that was the survival for the fittest. Again, we can see B is natural selection, on which definition we can say natural selection is the process through which certain traits become more common in a population over time due to the reproductive success of individuals possessing those traits. That is natural selection. Ni process ambako sifa fulani zinakuwa popular katika kizazi fulani kwa sababu individuals ambao walikuwa na hizi traits waliweza kusurvive katika mazingira yale. That is all about natural selection. Again, on the mechanism, we can see the process involves several key components. Process ya natural selection ina involve several key components ili iweze kuwa successful. And we can see here, the first component is variation. You can see individuals within a species exhibit variations in traits, example, size, color, and behavior. What bring about natural selection, or what makes natural selection appear, is just because of variation. Individuals vary in color, in size, as well as in shape, and those variation is what they bring about a selection. There are those, maybe they, for instance, I gave you an example for black and white moth during Industrial Revolution. So on the issue of color, those with black color survive. We mean they were selected for, but those with white color were selected against, were perished out, but the black moths were survived. And another component is competition. We can see resources such as food, mates, and habitats are limited, leading to competition among individuals. Component of natural selection is competition, meaning that there might be limited resources in the environment, maybe food, space, light, and so forth. For both, for those individuals who will be capable of competing the scarcity of the resources, they'll be capable of surviving the environment, but those which will be unable to compete, they will perish out because they will lack essential resources for their survival. And by saying this, my dear student, we can see how natural selection can be explained well as how survival for the fittest can be explained well according to Darwin. These all ideas were provided by Darwin on his explanation concerning the issue of evolution. And now we can see reproductive success as another component of natural selection. Individuals with advantageous traits are more likely to survive and reproduce, passing those traits on to the next generation. When we talk about reproductive success, we talk about those individuals with reproduction advantage, wana uwezo wa kupasi traits zao kwenda kwenye generation moja na nyingine. Again, there is the issue of adaptation. You can see over generations, these advantageous traits become more prevalent in the population, leading to adaptation to the environment. Kabazungumzia component ya natural selection, after the nature selecting the organisms which are fit to survive in the environment, baadaye zile features zinakuwa zinaadapti katika mabadiliko ya mazingira na hatimaye zinakuwa passed katika kizazi kimoja na kingine zaidi. That is all about natural selection, but for you ulihitajika tu ku give out the definition of survival for the fittest according to Darwin as well as the natural selection. For this is the addition of the question, ili ukikutana na swali kama hili uweze kutoa explanations za kutosha. And that's why I decided to give you the concepts in summary ili uweze kujibu vizuri. As you can see here, in essence, survival of the fittest highlights the competitive aspect of survival, while natural selection describes the mechanism by which advantageous traits are favored in the evolutionary process. Together, these concepts form the foundation of Darwin's theory of evolution. And up to here, utakuwa umejibu vizuri zaidi. Unaweza ukatoa jibu in this summary, then inakuwa ni jibu. Pia unaweza ukatoa zile definition, then unakuwa umejibu tu vizuri. That is all about that. And again, let's take a look on the question number 2. We can say, state the strength and weakness of the Lamarck's theory of evolution. We are required to state the strengths and weaknesses of the Lamarck theory of the evolution. Before hujatoa strengths and weakness, you have to understand Lamarck alizungumzia kitu gani na gani. Then you can provide the strengths of the theory as well as the weakness of that theory. And now, my dear students, you can say Lamarck's theory of evolution, often referred to as Lamarckism, proposed that organisms evolve through the inheritance of acquired characteristics, and here are some strengths and weaknesses of his theory. Alieleza kwamba organism wana evolve kwa inherit acquired characteristics. That is all about that. And now we can see the strengths. The first one is that the theory focuses on adaptation. We can see Lamarck emphasized the idea that organisms adapt to their environments, which aligns with the observable changes in species over time. Kwa strength yake ya kwanza alizungumzia adaptation, yani alionyesha role ya environment kwenye evolution. That is the first strength. As you can see, the second one is early concept of evolution. He was one of the first to propose a systematic theory of evolution, paving the way for later evolutionary theories including Darwin's natural selection. Tukizungumzia kwa ufupi hapo tunasema kwamba he opened up the mind of other scientists to explore about the evolution. Kwa hiyo this is all about early concept of evolution. Alikuwa ni scientist wa kwanza kudili na concept ya evolution before anyone else. Again, emphasize on environmental influence. Lamarck's idea underscored the role of the environment in shaping the characteristics of organisms, highlighting the interaction between organism and their surrounding. Kwa hiyo another issue is that Lamarck alionyesha role ya environment kwa evolution process, how environment influence the process of evolution. That is another strength of Lamarck theory. Again, he talked about the diversity of life. As you can see, his work acknowledged the diversity of life and attempted to explain how different species could arise from common ancestors in response to environmental challenges. That is all about diversity of life. Alionyesha the way ambavyo species wanaweza species mbalimbali wana rise kutoka kwa ancestors mmoja na kuongezeka katika mazingira kulingana na changes mbalimbali ambazo zipo katika mazingira. And then after this strengths, my dear student, now we are going to take a look on the weakness of Darwin's theory. As we can see here, there is lack of mechanism for inheritance. That is first weakness of Darwin. Kulikuwa kuna lack ya mechanism, kulikuwa kuna ukosefu wa mechanism ambayo inaonyesha inheritance. So tuna totalize kwa kusema kwamba Darwin hakuonyesha role ya genetics kwenye evolution. Lamarck hakuonyesha role ya evolution ya inheritance kwenye evolution. We can say Lamarck did not provide a credible mechanism for how acquired characteristics could be inherited, which was a major criticism of his theory. That is the first one. And the second one, you can see contradiction with genetics. Modern genetics and the understanding of inheritance through genes contradict Lamarck's idea. We can see traits acquired during an organism's lifetime are not typically passed on to the offspring. That is all about contradiction with genetics. Because Lamarck explained that when an organism acquires a certain trait, somatical during the lifetime, that organism can pass that trait to the offspring. Even this trait ikiwa ni acquired, for instance, if take an example, if you lost your arm, according to Lamarck, you will have a baby lacking an arm. And that's why Lamarck make contradiction with the genetics. Watu ambao walikuwa wanajihusisha na genetics walimdisagree Lamarck kwa kusema kwamba acquired traits zinaweza kuwa passed from generation to generation. Again, there is misinterpretation of changes. Many of the changes he proposed, like the elongation of giraffe's neck from stretching, do not accurately reflect how evolution occurs over generation. Another weakness is misinterpretation of events. Alikuwa anatueleza kwamba evolution can be explained by taking an example of giraffes, kwamba walikuwa na short necks baadaye wakawa na long necks. That is the misinterpretation. Again, limited evidence. Lamarck's theory lacked empirical evidence and was soon overshadowed by Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection, which is supported by more extensive evidence and a clear mechanism of evolution. Kitu kingine ambacho Lamarck alikosa ni limited evidence. Hakuwa na evidence za kutosha. For instance, ukiangalia itole mfano wa short-necked giraffe, till now hatujai kuona giraffe ambao walikuwa ni short-necked, na hatujai kupata hiyo historical evidence kwamba walikuwepo. That is the limited evidence za Mr. Lamarck. And now, after finishing question number 2, tuende tukaangalia question number 3. As you can see, based on the theories of organic evolution, describe the development of A, webbed feet in duck, and B, long necks in giraffe. As you can see here, the one who explained about these two observations is Lamarck, and now based on the Lamarck's theory, tuende tukaangalie how will you explain about webbed feet in duck and long necks in giraffe. As you can see here, development of webbed feet in ducks, the evolution of webbed feet in ducks can be explained through the lens of natural selection. And ducks are aquatic birds that have adapted to their environment where swimming is essential for survival, and the presence of webbed feet allows them to paddle efficiently through water, enhancing their ability to escape predators, foraging for food, and migrate. So kuwa na ile pale webbed feet iliwasaidia wale walozi develop hizo webs kuweza kusurvive na kuwa selected katika mazingira, kwa sababu walikuwa na uwezo wa kwenda kutafuta chakula majini, even if in terrestrial environment kulikuwa kuna ukosefu wa chakula. And over generations, ducks with slightly more pronounced DOMD would have had a survival advantage in aquatic environments, and those individuals would be better swimmers, leading to increased access to food and better evasion from threats. As a result, these traits would be passed on to their offspring, gradually leading to the development of full-webbed feet in modern ducks. So, on this issue, you'll explain in a little bit by saying that according to the theory of organic evolution, Lamarck explained that due to the lack of food and the presence of predators on the land environment, ducks decided to move on the water where there was little predators as well as much food. So those ducks ambao walikuwa capable of surviving na wakadevelop after a while wakadevelop webs on their feet, they were capable of surviving, but those ducks which failed to develop webs waliweza kuperish out. And then tukiangalia development of long necks in giraffe, we can see the evolution of long necks in giraffes has been a subject of interest in evolutionary biology, which was proposed by Lamarck. Jean-Baptiste Lamarck proposed a theory of evolution that emphasized the inheritance of acquired characteristics. That was about Lamarck alieleza about the inheritance of acquired characteristics. As you can see here, according to Lamarck, the long necks of giraffes evolved as a result of their ancestors stretching their necks to reach higher leaves on trees, and this behavior was driven by the need to access food that was otherwise out of reach. Kwa hiyo walioweza kufikia chakula ambacho kilikuwa out of reach kwa kuweza kustretch their neck walisurvive, but those ambao walifail waliweza kuperish. And Lamarck believed that as these ancestral giraffes stretched their necks over generations, they would develop slightly longer necks, and then walipasi hizo traits to their generations. And then we can see, importantly, he posted that this acquired trait lengthening of the neck due to stretching could be passed down to their offspring, and thus each successful generation of giraffes would inherit longer necks, leading to the evolution of the long-necked giraffe we see today. That is all about the ideas of Lamarck on explaining the theories of origin of life. And by reaching here, my dear students, I would like to say thank you for following us, Educare Media Tanzania, and don't forget to subscribe our channel, to share as well as to like.